Okay, so hi everyone, and welcome back again to CAM Study Abroad Conference. So now for our next session, we're excited to have you listen to and engage with our next batch of speakers in this live panel called Mapping the Globe. So today's speakers will discuss whether the particular location of their college played a role in their decision making, as well as other factors they considered when assessing their chosen college destination. We'll also get to hear a little about their experiences applying to and studying abroad in their chosen countries. Now, before we proceed with the talk, let's lay down the house rules. So first, please do not spam the Q&A box or send any inappropriate messages. And second, everyone at camp is working very hard to make your conference experience amazing. So please be respectful at all times. Now, how to ask questions. So first, all questions must be sent in the Q&A box. Questions in the chat box might be lost in all the messages. And then second, please format your questions like this: name and then your question. So, okay, I think now that we're all familiar with the house rules, I'm excited to introduce our speakers for this panel. Okay, for the speakers, you guys can on-cam, please do so. So for our first speaker, she's an incoming junior at UC Berkeley studying biology and data science. Her long-term goals are to go either into data science, public health, or genetics research. But her short-term goal is to figure out where the best boba in the Bay Area is. At Cal, she works for an overlay journal under the former public health dean, as well as for the data department as core staff. Most of the days, she gets her over homesickness by washing dishes while her friends cook adobo. Other days, she's soloing Rosas and other songs as one of the first members of Berkeley's Filipino a cappella club. As a recent convert to guacamole, matcha, cycling, and F1, she's excited to share what she loves and what she doesn't about California and the US. Everyone, please help me give a warm welcome to Cai Ibarra. Hi, Kai.
Hello, nice to see everyone again.
Thank you. Now, for our next panelist, they're a second year biochemistry and cell biology student at Constructor University, formerly known as Jacobs University in Bremen, Germany. She applied to mostly US universities and one German university before settling in her current university. She's currently taking an internship and working in one of the colleges at her university. Everyone, a virtual round of applause for Adz, please. Hello, Adz.
Hi guys. Hope you guys are good today.
Hello. Okay. Now, for our third panelist, unfortunately, she won't be able to make it here today because of schedule conflicts. So now for our fourth panelist, they're an international Scientia coursework scholar at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, taking up a Bachelor of Media, major in Communication and Journalism. He currently serves as the Coach Engagement Manager in Communication no, Coach Engagement Manager at Kada Career, a career development platform for underprivileged Filipino students. He is also an active member in the campus ministry and dabbles in various creative endeavors such as news writing, theater, and the alto saxophone playing. Let's all clap our hands for Enzo Ortega. Hello, Enzo.
Hi, and what's up, guys? Nice to
Hello.
see you, even though I can't see most of you. But yeah.
Thank you. Hi. Now, for our last but certainly not the least panelist, is an incoming third-year student at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University with a target major in electronic and information engineering. He went to Xavier School San Juan, where he took up the IB diploma program, was the editor-in-chief of the student publication or magazine or newspaper, founder of the tutoring club, and head of the school's committee for prayer and reflection. He enjoys taking walks through gardens or large shopping malls when he's not too busy trying to figure out why his logic board or code is not working as it should. He also finds great joy in food and has bounced up, down, and around Hong Kong looking for good food and hole in the wall restaurants where he can eat, drink, and be merry. As of the time of writing, he is halfway through Succession and on HBO and Celebrity on Netflix. Please help me welcome Anton Labos with a round of applause. Hi, Anton.
Hello.
Hello, yes, you can see you. Now, without further ado, let's begin our panel discussion with our esteemed panelists. So the panel discussion will work like I'm gonna ask the questions and then I'm gonna give like an order for the speakers to respond. So let's try like Let's go with Kai first, and then Adz, and then Enzo, and then Anton. Is that okay?
Although we can switch it
Okay.
up if anyone wants to go first, but
Yep.
I can definitely go.
Okay. Okay. So for first question, what locations or countries did you apply to?
Yeah, short and sweet question. I just applied to US, Asia, and the Philippines. For the Philippines, I did UP and Ateneo. For Asia, I did Singapore and Japan. And for the US, well, it's just one country. But yeah, I did East and West Coast, both.
Okay, Adz, you want to respond?
For me, I mostly applied to US schools and then Germany and then the Philippines. That's like all the countries I applied to.
I was pretty much set to study in the Philippines, so I applied to all the 4 unis in the Philippines. But then, like, I was encouraged by my sister, "Oh, join me in Aussie land, see the kangaroos." So I did apply to all Australian universities in Sydney, and yeah, hopefully got in all of them. Yeah.
I'm also pretty much the same. I applied to all the unis in the Philippines and then also the US, East and West Coast, and Hong Kong. And that's it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now for our next question, how does your country's education system and curriculum differ from that of the Philippines, and how were you able to ensure that your program of choice aligned with your academic goals? Kai, want to go first?
Yeah, I think the US, yeah, for context, I go to Berkeley, which is on the West Coast. It's a UC school, it's a big public school. I think, although I know that this is the case for a lot of my friends also who study in the US system is a little bit more flexible in terms of how you schedule your like course plan and how many majors you can do. Because in the US, and I think we'll get to this later, a lot of people work at the same time as they study. So that's factored in to the fact that you can rearrange your schedule basically however you want. If you have a lot of part-time jobs that semester, you can take a light load. If you don't have many, you can take a more heavy load. So yeah, I guess that's the first part of that question. And I guess just my thoughts on that. I really like how flexible it is because I came in to like as a first year wanting to just do bio, like just bio. Philippine, as our keynote speaker said, when you think STEM, you think bio. That was me. But eventually the Bay Area got to me and I was like, oh, I want to do data science. And I think if I wanted to do that in the Philippines, there would have been a lot of red tape on that. Like maybe you would have had an extra year because I'm double majoring. But in the US, since you can like basically piece together whatever you want, I can finish my double major in 4 years. So yeah, I think that's the main difference for me.
For us, like we only take like 3 years to finish a degree, and since like I'm taking up biochemistry and cell biology, I think my major really needs like masters. And like my thing is like, okay, I'm gonna save like 1 year because like it's just 3 years, and it's also like two majors if you think about like biochem and then cell biology. And also for us, we don't have a lot of like schoolworks throughout the year. What we just need to do is like pass the finals basically. And our schedules every day is just you're not mandatory to have an attendance in class. And the only mandatory classes I have is basically German and then my lab, because of course you have to be in the lab. And I think that really helps me like balance myself because for the first year, a lot of your math is like basically the repeat of everything in high school. So basically you fit everything in like one semester, right? And I think that's really helped me like be flexible in a term of okay, first year is a time for socializing in a way that it made me flexible to just learn more about the culture and more about the people than just like focus on academic itself. I think that for me was really important because um the foundation of everything. So yeah, I think that's the main difference in the Philippines because I know like most of my batchmates in the Philippines have like a lot of exams throughout the year, like long exams, quizzes. And I feel like for us, of course, the weight of 100% final exam is really scary. But at the same time, you have like a month for it to study on it and basically focus on it. So that's for our school system. Yeah.
I think one main big difference that I observed here was that if you're in the pursuit of becoming a lawyer or becoming a doctor, like you could actually start that during your bachelor's. So do you know how in the Philippines, right, you take a pre-law or pre-med, like in biology or political science, if you want to pursue law, like for bachelor's here, you could actually start taking up law and you do that for 5 years and then you become a lawyer. So you reduce like 3 years, because back home, right, it takes you about 8 years to be a doctor or a lawyer, whereas you could do that for 5 years here. So that's one. Also, the second would be, I guess, class structure. So in the Philippines, you do have like classes per course subject that you're enrolled into. So it's basically just the professor teaching you, and then you listen, take down notes, or if some cases you do projects in class, right? But for here, you do have like two different structures per course. So you have lectures and tutorials. So lectures are basically like the big gathering of all the students enrolled in that course. So probably about 50 students, 70 students in that lecture. And then you have your tutorials, which basically you group into smaller groups where you have more in-depth conversations, and yeah, just try to analyze it with a tutor who will help you digest all those specific things that you discussed during your lectures. So yeah, I think that's right off the bat that I could think of as major differences. And I guess also our uni is pretty niche. Like it's the only tri-sem school here in Sydney. So we're actually in the middle of exams while the rest of the people here are doing vacay, partying, whatnot. So it's a bit busy for us. And the original structure was 15 weeks per sem. So we're doing it 10 weeks now. So yeah, it's super congested, but I'm fine with it as long as you keep doing your work and not slack off. You'll do fine. Yeah.
In Hong Kong, I think it's also pretty similar to Australia, that we have different classes such as lectures and tutorials. Then the lectures are usually longer, take 2 to 3 hours, while the tutorials are 30 minutes or even less, depending on the professor, whether or not they want to finish earlier. But another major difference with the Hong Kong system, I think, is that they offer several higher degree courses or pathways, because there are some who choose to take an associate's degree or what they call a higher degree, and that only takes 1 or 2 years. And for most or a lot of companies, that's usually enough. But such as the course that I'm in, electronic and information engineering, or a lot of the other engineering or standard business courses, it usually takes 4 years unless you do rush it. Yeah, I think that's the major difference. And also with regard to schedule, since it is Hong Kong, there are a lot of holidays, and the different universities there, like a lot different break times for their holidays. So for example, I'm in PolyU. Our Chinese New Year holidays from January 21 to 29 usually, but then another university like HKU might have a longer break that spans 2 to 3 weeks. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, on to the third question. What factors do you consider when choosing a country to study in?
Do
Kai, do
I
you want to go
go?
first?
Yeah, sure.
Or
Maybe
do
I
you want
should
to?
have. It's okay. Maybe I should have gone to Asia. That break sounds so good. But yeah, I guess what I took into account, this was me like 2 years ago. Um, I definitely took prestige a lot, and I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm saying it's what I did. And there were pros and cons to that, because I didn't really focus, I guess, on student life, and I guess just the city that you live in. Looking back, I don't regret studying at Berkeley at all. I just really, really wish I studied in an Asian city, because oh my God, cities in the US and the West in general are closed like really early. And I'm like, this is not good for me, who is La Cochera. So yeah, if I were to give myself like my previous self advice though, it would be like the main factor, aside from I guess financial capacity and if the school supports what you want to pursue. Of course, that's number one. But like the next one for me would probably be if it's in a city and like an environment you like. Because for example, a lot of universities in the US are in the big cities. You can think NYU, you can think USF, you can think UCLA, and those are like very like dynamic cities. You can do like Broadway while going to class. You can do everything. But if that's not your vibe, you can also do like the more rural universities, the Ivies, or yeah, and all that. Because that, aside from academics, that's only a part of your life, right? You're going to want a break from that, and that's where you go out and explore the place that you're in. So yeah, for me, if I could go back to my future self, to my past self, I would definitely say take into account the city where your university is in.
For me, like one of the biggest factor is financial, because the US is so much expensive than like Europe. I think I I was like looking at UCSD also, because like that's one of the top schools that I really wanted to go to. But I think the tuition fee there was like 4 times than like my tuition fee right now, like per year. And that's like a big factor for me, like especially my family. And the second one is safety of the environment and the city that I live in. Because in Bremen, I think the crime, I searched about it, the crime rates are really low. Like most of the crime rates are like stealing and like just your bike. If you leave your bike alone, it's not going to be there after. So that's like one, like the biggest issues I think in my city. Like I think I would go out until 12 midnight after like to frisbee, because I go home at 10 or something like that, and I'd be safe, and I'm like alone. And since it's also my first time living away from my family, I wanted to be safe as well. So I feel like you should take account the safety of the environment that you're gonna live into. And also I think the sports, because for me, uh I really wanted to have like an avenue of after school uh leisure, for example. And I really searched into like a good frisbee community, and Bremen also has it. So that's the factors for me at least. And I think you should also take account of the professors, because for me, I really wanted to do research, and the professors in my school, they really are hands-on when you want to do like focus on research. Because at first I wanted to go here and be like, oh yeah, I want to be a doctor and just go into medicine. But because of them, they really said that research is like, a big thing. And they made me realize that this is kind of what I want to do in life too. So you should take account like the faculty as well. So yeah.
I have very similar answers, so I don't know how it will be different. So yeah, I think I also considered like the prestige factor, which I also want to emphasize, like don't choose the university or country because of ranking, like go specific to the program that you want to apply for. So yeah, like UNSW, according to QS World Rankings, it's top 19, which is basically saying there are 18 more better options. But yeah, the opportunities for growth in my specific program is really great, because looking into journalism, because I want to pursue international journalism or probably do law school afterwards if that is the calling. There are internship placements to the major media outlets here in Sydney. So that's really great on my end to get that on my resume. And also, yeah, I also want to talk about like if you can do a site visit first on the school that you want to get into before committing to, just looking at online, because, prospective universities would really pay a huge amount of money to portray their school as they want to be, because they want your money, they want you to be there. But if you're actually on site and you could see that, is this really like the environment I want to spend the next 3-5 years? Then if the answer is yes, then go for it, right? And also talk with the people who have been there or are going through the course that you want to apply for. Like, how's their daily life? What is the course like? And are they, feeling homesick at times? So those casual conversations with people that have gone through it and have been through where you are going through right now. And one factor and would probably be like the courses are taught in English. So I'm not sure if I could flourish in a country where it's predominantly in a foreign language. Like I don't have the time to learn another language that I don't really know. And Sydney is very multicultural. Like you would see someone who looks like you? I think that's one of the questions that I had with people when they were wondering, why I chose Australia. Like, should it be too white? Like I would be left out, but that is not the case. Like you would have a lot of, there's a different demographic, large demographic per, represented around the world. So it's really great. And also financial, living expenses is relatively cheaper compared to the UK or US, I'd say. So yeah, that was also the biggest push why I decided to pursue Australia instead. And yeah, I do not regret it. And I'm enjoying myself so far, as you can see from my smile. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, there were three major considerations when it came to choosing Hong Kong. They were the financial aspect, the overall vibe, and also the pathways during and after the time you're there. So firstly, for the financial aspect of it all, I have to say that the Hong Kong universities, or maybe just in general Asia, are much more generous when it comes to scholarships and financial aid packages. And they don't really base it on your financial need, more of whether or not you've put in the work before and you have a lot to show for. And another thing is that the cost of living is much cheaper. Although the rent is horrible, the food, you can get so much good food for so cheap, and you'd feel like, you're a tourist, but then you're still living there and you get to experience it every day. Another thing is the overall vibe. As mentioned by Guy earlier, it might be better if you're in like a grassy area or the city. In Hong Kong, there are many different universities in many different areas. There's one situated right in front of the sea in the middle of nowhere. There's one back near the border of China, and then there's some by the harbor. And of course, me considering that I cannot live without a mall nearby or a 7-Eleven, I chose PolyU. And yeah, so that's something you also need to consider, because it might help, again, if you do a site visit, but visiting the general city or area that you plan to live in might also help much more, because you're going to be there for 3 to 4 years and you don't know if, you might go mad if you're just facing the sea the entire time. And then the last thing is the pathways. So in Hong Kong, there are many different opportunities for internships, and as well the employment opportunities that the university sometimes pushes on you, but more like offers. And I think, yeah, you might want to research before you apply for a certain university, either in Asia or the US or somewhere else, whether or not they have things that would suit you and your schedule, because I'm sure you may want to come home to the Philippines every so often. And yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Now for the fourth question, how generous is your university with financial aid, and did you avail of financial aid, scholarships, grants, etc.? And is there an average cost of living that students can use to estimate?
Okay, ako yung madadamay dito. Let's get the worst over with, because the US is the worst of this, which is giving financial aid. They are very stingy, as everyone else has said, and you can supplement, like, they do not like people getting their money. Mostly because, especially for public universities, which I am in, the UC system, they, of course, as like normal, they save their money for the citizens. They are a state school. And even private universities like the Ivies or whatever, all the private universities, they might give aid to international students, and they have in the past. You can check like success stories from different people who have successfully applied abroad. But yeah, there's a lot of paperwork that goes into that, a lot of documentation. It's generally very difficult. And to top that off, living in the States is not cheap. As Rheign said, if you want to go home, especially during peak times, like for example, when classes end in December, a round trip ticket is 1.5K US dollars off the bat. Living rent, especially on the coast, so like New York, California, it's really expensive. The grants, they're there. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are people who have applied and gotten amazing scholarships, and I salute them. I applaud them. They're amazing, but I'm not one of them. So yeah.
For my university specifically, they changed the scholarship applications process. So you get like a certain amount of money for the grades you had in high school. So if you get like straight A's, I think you get 8,000 euros off your tuition fee or something like that. And they're very generous. Like as long as you get a, a certain grade from your high school, I think you get a scholarship. And the idea is you can also work on campus because there's a lot of work offered just on campus for us. And for the housing and meal plan, it's cheaper in a sense for I think okay, let's get into numbers. Okay, I'm gonna be transparent with you guys, but it's around I think 3,000 euros for your rent, and that's for 10 months already. So imagine. And that is I have one single room. I'm like single in one room. I only share a bathroom with one other person. So that's our living situation. But I think now the freshies will kind of have like loft beds where you can have like two people, and that will be so much cheaper. And then our food is also from the university, so I think it's like 3,500. And you get basically a card, and then you just swipe it out and you get food basically. So if you want to live off campus, like right now I'm living off campus, like I have a house with like some other people in the university, I pay like 230 a month. But we have like utilities, of course. But the rent around the area is very, very cheap. And the food and groceries are very, very cheap depending on your diet. And I think milk is also cheaper. Eggs are also cheaper, like compared to the Philippines. Even meat. I think I compared like meat prices. I was like, damn, okay, maybe I'll be cooking here. And I think the only factor that's really expensive is the trips going home, because I really like going home. I think I've gone like home twice, and I'm only like a first year. And the flight goes about 1.3 on a good day euros. So that's a big factor I also take into account. Oh, and our transportation, you also pay for our transportation. I think 150, and it's unlimited. Like you can go like wherever in Bremen, and you can also go to Hamburg and Hanover like for free basically. So I mean that's what we call it, for free, because we don't cash, but we pay for it at the start of the semester. But I think for all it's very cheap compared to other places, I would say. So yeah.
On the first question, like how generous is your university? I think they're pretty generous because I'm one of the benefactors of that generosity. So I'm a scholar in the school. It pays a major amount of my tuition fees, and I'm really grateful for that. So I guess the question would be like, how do you get it? So it's pretty competitive. So I think the first talk, kanina, was really helpful on how to your application to stand out from the sea of applications, because everyone wants to study abroad, but the reality is like people who have money sometimes always get those positions. Like they're not, so in most cases they're not really looking for talented people, because you also have to think like colleges are also corporations, financial institutions, so they would only invest a certain amount of money to the right people who they think will contribute to their community. So yeah, there are options, there are a lot of scholarships, but do make it so that you will stand out and you will be granted that. Like think of ways on how to make your application or you be a worthy investment. So that's one. But also want to touch on like search government scholarships, right? Don't just look at the scholarships offered by the school. So in Australia, they do sponsor like they have government scholarships to sponsor students like from the Philippines, India, China. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. Like you could search the Department of Home Affairs, I think, for those opportunities. And also look at private companies, Ren, because I do think also that private institutions like Rotary, for example, would have those options wherein they would pay for your school. And I just don't know what the catch is, but yeah, you do your research. In terms of living expenses, according to the visa grant that you will get if you choose to apply to Australia, they're estimating it to be 30,000 Australian dollars. Like, I don't want to convert it to Philippine peso because it's gonna sound way more expensive. But thankfully, I live on campus, so I don't have to worry about transportation or food because I live in a college residence, which provides or caters your meal 3 times a day. So yeah, and some days I've become a sloth because I would just wake up 10 minutes before class starts because it's just a 30-second away from my classes. So consider all those factors. Like, I would really suggest that you guys live on campus if if financially it makes more sense, and because of the convenience that you will be able to live if you're living on campus, because classes are near and you don't have to spend for meals, and you get to be more involved with school life since meetings are just 30 seconds away from where you live, and you can have late night chikahan sessions with your friends. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, passing it on to Anton.
Thank you, Enzo. Okay, so I have thought about this, and there's only one sentence that summarizes how generous they are. They have a lot of money, and they want everybody to take it. So the universities in Hong Kong are actually funded by the University Grants Committee. It's part of the government, so everyone is basically a public school student. And under this University Grants Committee, there are even additional scholarships that you can get, like the APEC Entry Scholarship, depending on what country you're from, or if you're from a Belt and Road Initiative nation, that sort of thing. But when it comes to scholarships for the students themselves, it ranges from half tuition to full tuition with living expenses. So most of the universities in Hong Kong, tuition costs about 145,000 Hong Kong dollars. So if you convert that, that's 1 million pesos a year. And living expenses, around 50,000 to 60,000 Hong Kong dollars. But then you're already very comfortable with that. So that's another 350,000 pesos. And assuming that you get the scholarship, everything is paid for. However, getting the scholarship is not easy since they like interviewing people a lot. And it's very difficult because although the medium of instruction is in English, the accent is very, very evident. And you have to sort of match your tone so that they better understand you. And yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Are there any specific language requirements that you had to comply with, i.e. language proficiency tests, taking up a language course, etc.? Guy, you want to go first, or let's go with Anton first?
Okay, I can go first, yes.
Okay.
Since everybody else is in a mostly English speaking, well, except for, but yeah, in Hong Kong, you don't need to know how to speak Cantonese. You don't need to know how to speak Mandarin, Hokkien, or any of the dialects. The medium of instruction is in English. Again, as I mentioned, the only difficulty is sometimes if your professor has a very strong accent. And yeah, but then sometimes you may be required to take like a Chinese course, just one, so that they say it's so that you can better understand the people around you, but it's basically so that you can fulfill a requirement. But apart from that, there's nothing else. Yeah.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now? Am I back? All right. I'm
Yep.
so sorry.
Yep.
Okay. This is the language requirements question, right? Yeah, not much for the US. They're all English speakers. Because there are no Americans in here, I will say you will probably know English better than most Americans will. But yeah, since this is the only question I think that I can talk about it, I will say that the other requirements I think for the US are definitely holistic. As the keynote speaker said a while ago, they check for a lot of extracurriculars, yeah, all of that. But as for the language, not much. You can They might ask for English proficiency, which you can take usually with satisfying a class in the US or meeting a minimum score on the IELTS, TOEFL. But yeah, they usually have a lot of options in terms of satisfying the agency.
All right, I can go next. For Australia or Sydney-based universities, sometimes they waive your English requirements. So if you took a IB-related class on literature or AP Lit, you can use that score to say that you can speak English, but double check with your admissions officer if that's something that you could submit if you have those requirements. But to be on the safe side, yeah, look Ren on where you could take a TOEFL or IELTS exam and satisfy a certain score for the specific program you want. Because if you're taking, let's say, law or you want to do an English literature course, then definitely the score requirement for those would be much higher. And they will be frank about it naman when you apply. You could see a catalog of the specific course that you have to make. So yeah, it really applies on your specific situation. If you have an IB or AP, or if you go to a local school, then the best bet is TOEFL or IELTS. But yeah, check with your admissions officer.
For us, we did have an English requirement going to the university because my university is an English institute. Like that's our medium of instruction. But we used to have a required German class, like one class. But I think they're trying to change that so you don't have to take it, but you can take it. And it's mostly like basic German, just so you know how to ask people from the grocery store. But you don't need it to like learn in the university basically because everybody speaks English. And for me to get the minimum language requirement, for us it was okay to just submit your SAT, and as long as you have a 600 plus in your reading and writing, that was good enough. And I think you can also get a certification of English of medium instruction depending on your school, like in the Philippines. So I think you could also ask like admissions officers about that because I think they also change it sometimes per year depending. So yeah, that's ours.
Okay, thank you, Adz. Now I think we're halfway through the questions. Let's switch up the order this time. Let's go with Anton first, and then Enzo, Adz, and then Kai for last. Okay. For the
Oh.
sixth question, how can studying abroad impact career opportunities?
So I think from the Chinese Hong Kong perspective, studying abroad really helps when it really opens a lot of doors. I think that's applicable for everybody else. But then when it comes to Hong Kong in particular, it opens a lot of doors, not only in Asia, but also in like the US or Australia, because banking and technology, those are like major industries there in Hong Kong because everything that passes through China has to go through Hong Kong before it goes to the West or something like that. So there are really a lot of companies that you can work for, HSBC, Standard Chartered, or even the tech companies. I think there's a Huawei office there as well. But then even if it's not the big companies, there are also like lots of small startups and all of these entrepreneurs who need labor, who need experts that you can work for them. And later on, maybe if you're promoted, you get stock options in their company, or you can move on to a different company and they'll send you abroad because you now know how to speak Cantonese and interact with the locals of China. And yeah, so with regard to career opportunities, studying abroad really helps, and you should research exactly where you want to be in the future so that you can determine how where you're applying can help you get there. Yeah.
In terms of Australian context, so all those who study the bachelor's degree are entitled to another 2 years to stay and work. So after you graduate, you could use that opportunity to apply to certain jobs here in Sydney or even in the wider Australian continent. So yeah, maximize those opportunities. And I think also, if you're thinking about moving back to the Philippines with your foreign degree, it does stand out from the sea of applications because probably all the applicants came from the local universities, right? And you're like by having that foreign degree, it not only shows like the level of academic rigor that you had to go through, but also the experiences that came along with that. And in the next coming years, as institutions are becoming more international, working together with transnational corporations, it's definitely a plus when you could show to them that you know how to interact with different people from coming from different backgrounds and different cultures. So in a employer's point of view, you'll definitely be a plus to the company if you so work for them. But also, yeah, if you wish to stay naman in the respective country that you want to work for, like let's say in Australia or in Hong Kong, they're generous with the opportunities they give to international students. But I don't want to sound like, oh, also, you know, utopia na, wow, everything is great if you studied abroad, because you're also competing with the local students, right? Once you graduate. And most corporations would actually prefer local students because they're not sure if you could commit long time for them because you're only there for an additional 2 years unless they sponsor you to work further. So there are definitely pros and cons. But yeah, I'm not on the stage of job application yet, still building my resume. So I'll tell you more about it when I'm facing that same dreadful choo-choo. Yeah.
For us, we have a lot of internship opportunities. Basically, when you study here, you get a residence permit. And if you get the residence permit, you can basically work 120 hours a month anywhere in Europe. And the minimum wage is very high compared to the Philippines. So you get like a lot. And I know a lot of students, not really a lot, but some students who actually help their parents like, pay for their tuition fees already because they are working as they are studying. And the career opportunities are very, very large. I think our CS department, like a computer science, is like Google feeders, Microsoft feeders. Like most of them go to Google or Microsoft. That's what I know. And if you want to continue masters and you have a residence permit, it's basically free. I think you pay for 50,000 pesos for miscellaneous fees. And then of course you have rent and living expenses, but you don't have to pay for a tuition fee at all. If you want to continue masters and you have like a residence permit already. And most of the masters here, you don't need to learn German because it's all English. And I think that's what's really hard for us because I personally I view my school as like a gateway to like Europe, basically. Because a lot of bachelor's and bachelor's degree and undergraduate schools here in Germany is in German. So you can't just go in and be like, hey, I want to go to your university, even though it's free. But masters, they are mostly in English. And if you, I don't know, want to work permanently or like stay in Europe, I think you only need to work for 3 years and you can be a candidate for a citizenship if that's what I like, if that's right. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I know. And you just have to learn, I think, B2 for language of German. So the flexibility of like wherever you're living is very, very nice. And what I noticed is the work-life balance here is so good. I think they basically force you to take a vacation. If you're like working too hard, they're like, hey, you should take your vacation days and it's paid. So I think in my mindset, like in the future wise, I think Europe is where I wanna like live and just have a career. So if that's what you're looking for, I think you should consider Europe too. And yeah, I think that's basically it. And also specifically to my university, we have study abroad. So we basically can go to other universities and just explore Europe too. Like I think if you're a psych major, you can go to Berlin. If you're an IM major, you can go to I think France or something like that. And you know more about different cultures and just diversity in general if that's what you're into. And yeah, so that's it. I know a lot of people who do internships in BMW, Volkswagen, I think also Amazon. So if you guys are interested in those companies, Europe is very flexible in terms of work and studying arrangements. So yeah.
I will echo everything that all the other panelists said. Amazing, because I also have a friend who's interning for Amazon. So yeah, studying abroad definitely, as a general principle, opens a lot of doors, and as Ad said, is definitely a gateway to a lot of different things. An example I can think of is, I said a while ago that prestige is not the only factor when you apply to universities, but I know that there is a work visa that if you study in a top 50 university, you get like an automatic work visa to the UK for like 2 years if you earn a bachelor's, 3 years if you earn a master's. So yeah, obviously prestige is not the only thing that you have to consider, but again, any on those top 50, you can spend 2 years in the UK just looking for a job. That's something you might want to consider in the future. The US is also similar to what Enzo said in terms of your student visa automatically gets you an extension to stay in the country. In the US, it's called OPT or optional practical training. 1 year if you're in any course, if you graduate with a bachelor's degree, and 3 years if you're in STEM. Yeah. What else do I want to say? So yeah, I echo a lot of those statements, but the different thing in the US, I think, is I would not agree with how generous people are. So yes, there are a lot of amazing like companies that are based in the States, like a lot, but they are very stingy in terms of who can get these opportunities. For your work visa, which is most likely going to be an F1 if you're an international student and not an American citizen, the most common thing that you can do and the easiest thing you can do with not a lot of red tape is to work on campus, which I think Az is also doing. So I'm also working on campus. But if you want to do private companies, which again are amazing, like trigger words, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, come on, Silicon Valley, amazing. But they might have that little fine print at the end where it's like open for US citizens or permanent residents only. And I have to close that tab because I am not a US citizen nor a permanent resident. And that sucks. So yeah, it's like I have to close half the tabs I apply to. And one of my friends, so I work on campus, my paperwork was fine, but my friend who is doing an internship at a private company, she literally cried while doing her paperwork. So yeah, that's, I guess, the more US side of it. But I think in general, like anywhere you choose to go, if you choose to go abroad, from the short term to the long term have many positive effects. Short term, as Ad said, study abroad. Many universities have partner universities in other countries. So many experiences you can take from that. But yeah, I agree. Good career opportunities.
Thank you, Kai. Now, next question. How has studying abroad impacted your personal growth and your global perspective? Anton, you go first.
Okay, so with regard to personal growth, okay, okay. Regarding personal growth, going abroad really pushes you to go outside your comfort zone. It's pretty obvious already, but then you might be shocked with how much you have to go outside your comfort zone. But eventually, okay, how do I explain this? I don't speak Mandarin well, and I also don't speak Cantonese at all. Everybody there in Hong Kong speaks either of those languages, so you can understand my confusion whenever I try to order something, or even just try to talk to my professor and he sees that I'm vaguely Chinese. So I really had to go outside of my comfort zone there in Hong Kong, but over the past 2 years, I've somewhat expanded what I'm comfortable with so that I can already adapt more or less to everything. So I've sort of learned a little bit of Cantonese, enough to survive and talk to people, but not enough to engage in a meaningful conversation. And also, I've already grown to know and sort of love this restaurants, the people, and all of the other attractions I can go to while I'm there. For global perspective, however, uh, basically, I've learned that it's more or less the same everywhere. Our situation here in the Philippines is more or less the same everywhere, but it's either exaggerated or sort of better. Because there in Hong Kong, you can see there are a lot of well-off people and everybody's enjoying shopping in Chanel and in the malls. But then at the same time, you can see, because everybody takes the MTR, the rich, the poor, doesn't matter where you're from. It's like the best transport system in the world, not really over exaggerating that. But then you can notice there are also poor people there. There are people struggling. Everybody's just trying to make ends meet. Everybody's just trying to make their voice heard. It's the same here in the Philippines, just much worse or much better, depending on your point of view. Yeah. And since you're there, it's your responsibility to, try to make the most out of the opportunity for yourself and help a little bit of people along the way if you can. Yeah.
In terms of personal growth, I think you grow faster compared to your peers because it pushes you to the point where you're not only thinking about your studies, but you're also thinking about your living expenses. You're also thinking about your future, basically, because yeah, it's not just school that you have to face, but also the daily struggles of becoming an international student. Because compared to the local students, you're paying more than them. So, if you don't come from a family who's giving you, millions of pesos every year, then that's something that's always on top of your mind. So yeah, I guess it makes you a more mature person, which is great because you're thinking about the long-term things because you're exposed to these realities at a early stage. Additionally, like you would set a certain amount of your time to do adulting stuff. Like if you have free time, other than watching that extra episode of Netflix, you would rather do your laundry or do budgeting. And yeah, those things that probably if you stay at home, some other person will do that for you. But here, if you're living alone, you do all those things for yourself. So that's also one thing that I want to highlight, Ren. If you're thinking about studying abroad, just start practicing those things now while you're still at home. Like instead of mommy or daddy cooking for your meal, start cooking your own meals, right? Or instead of Ate Kuya doing your laundry, wash your own underwear or do something that's going to prepare you for a life alone, because that's good training. You're already preparing yourself for what's going to lie ahead. And so global perspective naman, I think, yeah, similar answer to Anton is actually we're more similar than different. Like, people would always ask me, oh, how would you be able to adapt with, the local Australian culture, which is, I think, just the accent is the difference. Like, sometimes it's hard for me to understand what they're really trying to say because of the Aussie accent. But other than that, they have same struggles. They're also experiencing things that university students all over the world are experiencing, like how do I pay for my school fees? And I'm the hope and of my family, and I have to do excellently so that I could provide them a better life. So all those things actually connect us in a way. I don't want to sound like a United Nations pamphlet motto choo choo, but that's the big realization that I really appreciate, that outwardly we may look different, but deep inside we do have certain things that would connect us. Yeah, make the world a better place, according to Michael Jackson, which I could see literally in my day-to-day here.
For me, I think it's almost the same as Enzo in the terms of personal growth, because one of the factors that I was considering, like one of the reasons actually why I went to the US, to the US, sorry, to Europe is I'm like the type of person that was described by Enzo, that I don't need to do laundry, I don't need to cook, and I feel like I needed to do that in order to grow as a person, because I feel like if I stayed in the Philippines until masters, until like whatever, my parents are gonna be there. So I really chose to like, okay, I need to like learn everything on my own and just learn more about the world. And when I came back here, my mom was like, "Oh yeah, you got so mature," and I was like, "Thank you." That's no biggie. But yeah, it was so hard trying to adjust at first, because you have to do your laundry, and laundry, like doing laundry, and like you have to go downstairs, and I mean we have laundries in our colleges, but it's a struggle because a lot of people are using it. So also I needed to learn how to commute, But like commuting here is so good, guys. Like you just have to look at it in the map and be like, okay, these are the routes, these are like the time slots, and I'm like, it's very easy compared to like commuting in the Philippines, basically. And for global like perspective, my university is an international school, basically. So a lot of nationalities go to my school, and I've learned a lot about other cultures, and I mean like a lot that I didn't know before. And I feel like that factored in more to myself and how I think about the world, and how, oh yeah, I sometimes when you think about a problem in the world, you don't take account like other people, but now you have to, oh yeah, there's like people who think like this, people who are doing that, people who believe in this. So I think my perspective got really wider, and just better scope in my perspective too. So that's most of the things that I learned. Yeah.
Yeah, for me naman, similar. Again, we're all basically the same, just in different continents. Yeah, just adapting a lot, like Anton said, and discovering the stories of the world, like our keynote speaker Joan said. It's like you thought you already knew a lot. Come on, like your high school, you could know kind of a lot already, but if you go abroad, it's like you're living so many more experiences that you can't get when you're just staying in one place. And that comes like on the best days, that's very cool. But on the worst days, it's also like really isolating, because you have to like deal with, trying to keep in touch with your friends back home. You have to deal with, like cementing yourself wherever you are in your new like place. So there's a lot of growing pains. And I think Enzo's the one that mentioned this, like adulting, like, oh my God, why do I need an SSN number? When I asked my parents who stayed in the Philippines, they're like, I got an SSN number. My company worked, like they got it for me. I'm like, so why do I have to apply for one right now? So yeah, there's just a lot of things that are fast tracked. And as for the global perspective, same, you make a lot of friends from all over the world. Singapore, off the top of my head, Korea, bakit puro Asia yung nasa US ako? Pero yeah, it's just broadening your perspectives beyond what you could ever expect. And I think that is a common like theme. Wherever you go, that's what's gonna happen if you choose to go abroad.
Thanks, Kai. Next, did you consider part-time or full-time work opportunities for international students in your country, and do you mind talking about them?
Yes, I did consider both part-time and full-time positions in Hong Kong. The interesting thing, however, is that while you are still a student, you're not allowed to work full-time outside of campus. So you can only work in campus in their offices as a research assistant while you're studying during the school year. However, during the summer, there's no limitation as to where you can work, how long, and how many jobs you have. You can work in Shake Shack at the same time as working in an art gallery. And so during the last summer, I, took advantage of that little loophole and had 3 jobs, one in an art gallery, one in a tech startup, and one in like an online bookstore. I have to say, again, it pays very well. And I think it applies for any Filipino student applying for China or Hong Kong. You will have an inherent advantage due to your English proficiency, even if you do not know how to speak Chinese or Cantonese. So yes. There are also multiple internship opportunities like streams that you can go into depending on what course you're taking. So for example, I'm in engineering. There's what they call the STEM internship. It's basically you work in a technology or science company, and then the government will pay you afterward. It's not the company that's paying you, but then the government pays very handsomely because it's like 11,000 Hong Kong dollars per month, and that's about 77,000 pesos per month. And rent is only 10,000 pesos, and living expenses is only 30. So you still have a lot to spend on shopping. And after you graduate, there are also like opportunities in the university itself that you work for them as either like an administrative assistant, and then they promote you afterwards. So who knows, you might be the dean of your department afterward. Or you can also apply to, as I mentioned before, the big companies because they have trainee programs. And again, English speakers are in high demand in the Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. So yes, as long as you know what you're doing, be it business, technology, or I don't know, economics, just be confident and yeah, tumindig. Yeah.
Yes, most definitely I considered work opportunities because number one, I'm broke. Number two, I'm broke. So I applied to various jobs like on campus and also cafe jobs like around the area because I think I'm on the stage right now where I don't want to commit myself yet to like the world of a 9 to 5 job where you sit down and check papers or write documents because I'm doing that already for my course degree. Like I wanted something that's fun and interactive, so a humbling experience like a cafe job or washing dishes, for instance. So those are the jobs that I'm looking into right now and applied, and hopefully, yeah, I do get in any of them because the work opportunities here are great. But for international students, you do have a work cap hours. So for us, it's 40 hours a fortnight. Local students get unlimited working hours, but the pay is good. Minimum wage is 20 to 22 AUD, and if you get an on-campus job, that's 35 Australian dollars per hour. So that's more than what you would get on a minimum wage back home in the Philippines. And if you work 8 hours, then if you just save up your money, you don't go shopping or you really be meticulous with how you do your finances, you could actually help your parents pay off for tuition fee, right? Or living expenses. So that's also like a killing factor for them if you start working and pay for your own education, for your own living expenses, because yeah, you're helping them on those aspects. So full-time work opportunities, unfortunately, you can't go full-time because your visa requirement only allows you to work part-time or get a casual job. That's something you could think about once you get your degree, when you get that grant access to work in the country that you studied in.
For us, as I mentioned earlier, for our visa, our maximum work hours is 120 hours a month. And for on-campus jobs, I think their maximum is about 40 per month. And like that's minimum wage. So if you want to like earn more, you can go outside because a lot of students, I think, work for like research data or something like that. And I think it pays a lot too, like very good. And you can save money from that if you want to help your parents go pay for your tuition fee. And for campus jobs, they are really, really flexible. Like your work times can align however you want to your schedule. Like for me, I'm working at the college, so I'm basically helping like the RA run the college basically. So I think for this summer, I'm working 60 hours this month and then 90 hours next month. So for the summer, it's really flexible in a way that you can apply to anywhere. As long as, of course, there's some of them have language requirements. I think that's the biggest struggle for us. That's the barrier. But if you get like an English job, it's really, really nice. And yeah, I think the university really offers a different range of job opportunities in college because my friend works at the corporate office. So if your career is basically in IRPH or international relations or IBA international business, you can use that to up your resume even if it's just a campus job. But there's also other jobs like working at the library where you just stamp books and basically it pays. So you have the same amount of payment per hour. It's just the hours that vary. And also there's like teaching jobs where you help the professor like, check people's homework, or like lab jobs, which I will have this semester, which you will help the lower years do their lab work for the professors. And that will look very good in your CV too. So not only are you earning, but you're also building your CV and your career. So yeah.
Yeah, everything. I would echo everything again. I love being last speaker. I just have to repeat what everyone says. But yeah, this is for the US at least. Our work hours under the F1 visa, which is the common US International Student One is called the F1, and it allows 20 hours a week for part-time during the school year and 40 hours or full-time during summer or vacations or something. That's a pretty good number, I would say, like on paper. But again, I was just really frustrated because, as I said, a lot of my jobs were like barricaded by the US citizen or permanent resident like thing. I will say though that that is most probably because I'm in STEM and I was looking for, like, again, as Adz said, like research jobs, which are more funded by the government. If you are like a humanities major or someone who would apply maybe to like private corporations, banks, consulting firms, I don't know, you'd probably have an easier time because private companies do not need to just hire permanent residents. So yeah, I will say also that from my experience applying, getting your first job is the hardest. So I really had I struggled getting that first one, like the first paid one, because there's a lot of red tape you have to go through. And luckily, for some reason, I struggled for so long to get one, but then this year they gave me two, and I'm like, okay, just keep an open mind and I'll take whatever I can get. For the US, for California at least, minimum wage is 16 for unskilled jobs. For on campus, I think it's 18 US dollars. And for mine, because it's a little more skilled, we like connect cables, manage databases and stuff. We get paid 21 an hour. Good extra money, especially because our work hours are flexible. Yeah, I will also say that, take it from someone who tried applying to like hard bio research, the ones where mostly master's and PhD works, and more like tech related bachelor's degree stuff. Like I applied to both, I would say like pretty much equal effort, but I had way more success in finding those like tech related jobs that once you do start like applying to jobs abroad, most of the time it's not your skills that are going to be the problem. There's just a lot of different factors. You're an international student, like you're like homeland security, like red tape. There's a lot of factors that go into getting work abroad. And in the US, they are very stingy about it, as I said. So I feel very lucky that I was able to get some jobs that I wanted. And yeah, I just hope that there'll be like stepping stones to the future to like more work opportunities.
Okay, thanks everyone. Now we're like on the second to the last question. So, what are some of the benefits and challenges of studying abroad in terms of cultural adaptation, and how did you make new friends in a new country? Can switch it up the order this time. Anyone want to go first? Can speak now or forever hold your peace.
I can get the party started. In terms
Okay.
of benefits, number one, cultural adaptation. Thankfully, I did not feel like homesick or left out. Like, oh no, like I miss home. I miss my mom's home cooked meals. Walang ganun naman on my end for the first few weeks that I was here, and that's because probably I live on campus and you live in a college residence wherein there are heaps of international students plus local students who are probably going through the same thing. So we got each other's backs. And yeah, you do things all together, like you eat breakfast, lunch, dinner in the same dining hall every single day. And one thing to, I guess, for someone probably who would have a harder experience adjusting to a life in a new country is just get involved with a lot of things. Like don't have extra time for yourself to mourn whatever you're losing. Distract yourselves by doing many things that are productive and will put you out there and be sociable. So for me, I'm part of the campus ministry. I also do a lot of extracurricular things in terms of music and theater. So yeah, theater people, they're always outgoing and madaldal. So yeah, I'm in my crowd. And one thing also is don't be yourself. Like, don't pretend that you're someone who you aren't just to fit in a certain group that you want to belong, because that's when you feel super isolated and super not part of the community, because you're presenting yourself in a way that you think would be more accepted, because you'll definitely attract people who are the same as you. And if you're an international student, hang out with fellow international students, like talk about what you guys are probably going through, like expenses and adjusting to a life outside the comforts of your own home, because definitely they would open up those discussions and they would be glad that you brought up that conversation, right? That, oh really, I'm also feeling alone. Yeah, same. Yeah, let's go. Also, siguro one downside lang for me is that there's no Jollibee in Sydney, so I really have to wait before to fly back to the Philippines before I taste my chicken joy again. So that's the biggest downside. The next good thing here is chicken inasal, not mang inasal, but it costs $15, and I went there for the sake of tasting a semblance of home. But yeah, it doesn't taste anything like what you would get for a 99 peso mang inasal. So yeah, probably just the cuisine is something that I would, the loss that I had. But if you also want to join a Filipino society, probably in your school, you have probably like a huge chunk of Filipino population. If you want, to speak and converse, in a language other than English, like, if you want to speak Tagalog, Jejemon, go to a Filipino society and be yourself. Yeah.
I can go next. Okay. Yeah. Benefits and challenges in terms of adapting. You realize how, like, I guess this is the most, like, best term I can think of it, like homogenous Philippine like societies, at least for me, because we're all we're all Filipino. We all speak mostly English, mostly Tagalog, sometimes different dialects. But in America, especially on the coasts, it's very heterogeneous. You meet people from international, a lot of in-state, just people from all different backgrounds. I have a classmate who is like 27 years old because he transferred from the Philippines from like UP. It's just like all different backgrounds. You can't assume anything. This isn't the case for everywhere in America. So I specifically said the coasts because my friend in Utah, of course, she mostly has white people. But from my experience, which is a lot, it's really nice just like learning and vibing with everyone, because you're not like you're international, yes, but you're not an outsider because everyone else thinks you're different and thinks everyone else is different. We're all just like trying to like, cohesive is the wrong word. We're all just trying to like vibe and be together. Yeah, and as Enzo said, I did find like home in terms of my Filipino friends. My closest barkada right now are all international students, from Miriam, from Pisay also, but yeah, from different schools. And it's interesting learning about different facets of your Filipino-ness, at least for me. Because before, syempre pinagtatawan ko dati yung mga, di ba, yung mga Phil-Ams na parang, oh my God, my mom cooks adobo for me. Oh my God, like Jollibee. Tapos ngayon, pag umuwi ako, may accent na daw ako. I'm like, okay, oh well. Tapos yung mga, akala mo normal lang dati na parang, so there's a club for a cappella, there's a club for theater. Hala ngayon, sa Berkeley, there's this Filipino a cappella club, there's a Filipino theater club. I'm like, whoa. There's 9 Filipino orgs in Berkeley, and in a big school like mine, I think regardless of where you choose to plant yourself, whether that be in a Filipino org or in any other org like academic or whatever, you will find your niche, and that's where you'll like find home in. I did not lie in my speaker bio. I love washing dishes while I freeload on my friends who actually cook Filipino food. So I don't get homesick that much, but I do get homesick when I least expect it. So yun nga, like yung mga times na I'm alone and not doing anything much or don't have to think much of anything. But yeah, as I said in one of the previous questions, like going abroad is just a lot of things thrown at you at once. So that's not usually going to be a problem, at least in my experience.
Okay, anyone can go
go
next.
next.
Okay, thank you, Adz.
I think it was really a big factor that you really meet like Filipinos too. because for me it was really really easy because yeah, my barkada is also all Filipino, and we also came like Pisay and like St. Paul, and it was really really fun to be able to explore all the new things together. It's really scary to explore all other things like alone. So culturally, if you're gonna go in like a party together, at least you will always have people you know in new areas. Because in our university, if you know, Europe is a partying continent, as you would say. Everything you know about Europe is kind of true, guys. Like, I will not lie, because in our university, partying is such a big culture that we have our own club, like in the university, and we have our own bar in the university that basically gives us free beer every Friday and free chips, because they want us to party safely in the university than like going out. But of course, yeah, students still go out, but through partying, I would say, and like all the events on campus, because we have like a whole department of student life to just facilitate all of the events, all the socializing, all of the meeting people. And we also have like peer mentors that help you integrate into your new environment. So it was really, really fun to be in a university that does not forget that socializing is still a part of being a person and just personal growth, not only academically but like socially and like spiritually and just emotionally also, because we have a lot of mental health programs. So I think that was really a big part of me settling in very easily. I think the only time that I got homesick was when I got COVID and I was alone, and I was like, Mom, who's gonna take care of me? Like, I think that's the only thing that, but any other else you can, because I think I'm 6 hours away from like the Philippines. So I would video call them every day during my lunchtime and their dinner time. So basically we're still eating together. So the time difference is not that big of a deal for me. And yeah, I think once you have good friends that you can explore everything together, it's very, very easy to adapt. Yeah.
I think in Hong Kong, cultural adaptation seems difficult at first because you cannot understand what everybody else is saying, but the longer you stay there, the more comfortable you'll be. You'll get along with a lot of people from, I'm just echoing what everybody else is saying, but to share from my point of view, I met a lot of people, Koreans, Filipinos who grew up in Hong Kong and don't know how to speak Tagalog at all, Venezuelans who grew up in Japan, all sorts of different types of people that you can get along with regardless of whether you're an introvert, an extrovert. You just need to be yourself and be kind while you're there, because everybody else is also just trying to be nice and get along with their lives. But yeah, just be kind. You'll run into some pretty nice people. If you brush up with some not so nice people, just continue going. And as for cultural adaptation, the challenge really, I think, in China or anywhere in Asia is the language barrier. But the longer, as I said, you stay there, the more you'll learn about the people. Even if you don't speak the language, you'll get the cultural tics, the sounds they make, and you'll get along with everybody else as well. Yeah. My roommate was Japanese, but he grew up in China. So he speaks Mandarin very well and English very well since he took IB. We're friends, I think, or at least I like to think we're friends. And we play badminton regularly. At the same time, he gets along with another group that I also met through my former Korean roommate, my former oppa. We also get along well. So just be nice, and people will be sent your way who are nice as well. Yeah.
Thanks for that, everyone. Now we're on to the last question. So, what advice do you have for students who are hesitant about studying abroad due to concerns about cultural adaptation and leaving their comfort zone? Anyone can go first. This is the last question.
Maybe I can go first.
Go.
Okay. Basically, be not afraid when it comes to, going to study in another country, because the opportunities that are present abroad are considerable. And it really will help not only you, but whoever else you might want to support back home here in the Philippines as well. And it's not like you're going to be alone. Although, for example, on the flight there, you'll be alone, you'll check in through immigration into the dorm, you'll be by yourself. Eventually, you'll get along with people who have similar interests, who are there to support you. And there are so many Filipinos wherever you go. So, and you can ask help from them, I'm sure. Even if you don't know them at all, the mere fact that you're Filipino, you can use that and they'll be so friendly. Just to share very briefly, there are about 300,000 Filipino domestic helpers in Hong Kong. And every Sunday they gather around for their rest day on the streets. And there was a time I was just, sort of not doing anything. And I said hello. And then they invited me in because they thought I was a policeman, but I was actually a Filipino. They invited me into their little place. They gave me food and they made kwentuhan. And it's very nice. So wherever you go, just be confident, be kind, and there's a brighter future despite the challenges you're going to face. Yeah.
All right, my time. Okay. Yeah. You will definitely go out of your comfort zone. We already discussed that very much in detail. But again, as we've all discussed, and just to wrap it all up, I think it's all worth it, at least for me. I don't think I've regretted anything I've done in the past 2 years. It was hard and it was frustrating at times, but it was also very worthwhile. So if that's what you think you want to be doing for the next few years of your life, just like learning a lot more about yourself and the world and just a lot of new things you wouldn't even think you'd have to learn technically, then yeah, studying abroad is for you.
Yeah, I think for me, there weren't any or a lot of experiences where like I had a difficult time adapting to the culture. And I think that's also one of the reasons why you want to get a education abroad, right? Which is to expose yourself to a culture outside yours. So while you have that strong foundation, I guess, with students coming from the similar background or your home country, like don't forget to also involve yourselves or socialize with people who are coming from that home country, well, the country where you're studying, and people who are coming from different backgrounds. So actually, like my two main friend groups, like I'm the only Filipino there, which is great because that's the niche that I have with my friend group. The only Southeast Asian dude in the group of white people, which is great because I learn about their culture, and then I also interact with, also like a representation of what Philippines is. Like some of them have no idea of what the Philippines is, and to have that, I guess, on my shoulders to represent the country is really great because, yeah, that's also something that I hope you guys also strive for when you're studying abroad, is to carry the country on your shoulders, represent it as best as you can, that Filipinos are hardworking, that they're dependable, and that they're also great and fun people to be friends with and to socialize. Yeah, so yeah, that's one thing that you should like brace yourself for, is to how do you stand up for yourselves, because most of the time it's also going to boil down to how you handle the situations, because you don't have mommy or daddy to call for, right? When there's a present problem, you have to make those fast decisions for yourself, and that's something that studying abroad hopefully will prepare you to do so as you progress later in life, where you have to make high level decisions right off the bat.
Hi, sorry, I got cut off. What was the question?
Okay, so the question was, what advice do you have for students who are hesitant about studying abroad due to concerns about cultural adaptation and leaving their comfort zone?
I think my advice is just look into the people that are already studying there and just like talk to them, because I feel like everyone's willing to help you adjust at first, especially if like upperclassmen, like lower classmen. They're willing to like show you around or just like um go with you to certain events like for freshies and everything like that, and just more specifically give you advice in how to adopt in your specific school. especially. And yeah, I think that's what really helped me, because we had, I don't know if you guys know Sebo Cruz, but yeah, he's also studying in my university before. And now he was the person who helped us settle. We asked like bank questions to him, documents question to him, tuition or like payment and everything like that, every technical. And for the friendship wise, he visits us like I think once a sem to make sure we're okay. And I think having that kind of connection with someone and having like a mentor kind of friend really helps you get settled in and make new friends, because of course when he says hi to people, you'll be like, oh, this is this person, this is this person. So whenever he's not here anymore, you can be like, hey, how are you? So I think making your friends is better if you have like one certain person who can be like settled already, if you get what I mean. So yeah.
Thank you, Ads. Actually, that wraps up our panel talk today. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for the Q&A. So I think most of the questions were already addressed in the Q&A by some of our speakers. So yeah, I hope that our beloved speakers were able to shed light on your curiosities and concerns. But if not, can I ask you guys if you can give away your contact info for the participants to reach out after the session? It's okay, okay. How about the rest? It's okay. Okay, can you guys send your emails in the chat? And for the audience, please keep those contact info in mind in case you have anything to ask. Because I'm so sorry you don't have any more time. Okay. Okay, while they're sending their contact info, on behalf of CAM's 2023 facilitation team, I would like to extend our sincerest gratitude and appreciation to all of you for imparting with us your experiences and advice. We are deeply grateful for your time, effort, and commitment in preparing and delivering such an impactful talk. Let's give a round of applause naman for Cai, Adz, Enzo, and Anton. Yay. So, wow, another amazing session has just concluded. This means that for the participants, you may now collect your badges. A link will be sent to the chat box, and you can go ahead and open it to get this session's badge. So, before we proceed with our next session, let's take a 5-minute break first. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.